Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We have some folks already in, and we'll wait a couple more minutes to let others who are hopping off meetings join us today. But would love to hear where you are if you want to drop that in the chat, where you're coming in from, and then we'll get started. I can start. I'm in the sunny Cleveland, Ohio, which I don't always get to say, but it's really temperate and lovely in Cleveland. All right, Chicago, Wisconsin. Wonderful. Sreesh is in Portland. Great. Another Chicagoan, Midwest represent. All right, let's give it one more minute. LA, welcome, welcome. All right. Well, we still have lots of people joining, but let's get started just in the interest of time and because I am a little uncomfortable with silence. So I am Sam, and thank you so much for joining us. I lead product marketing here at SpendHound, and I'm joined by Sreesh Reddy, our director of product. And today we're going to talk about a challenge that pretty much every organization we know is running into right now, and that's AI. AI adoption is moving really quickly, but the systems for managing and forecasting and governing that spend haven't quite caught up. So we've got lots of ideas. We have some suggested solutioning that we know folks are excited to hear about, but we also want to hear from you. So throughout the webinar, please feel free to drop into the chat anything that's resonating, anything that's popping up from you, and certainly questions as you have them. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So we're going to be talking about AI. We're going to be talking about AI spend visibility, which is our newest module. And our research that you'll see a bit throughout this webinar recently found that 57% of finance and procurement leaders either don't believe they're paying a fair price for AI or they simply don't know. So today we're going to unpack why that gap exists and start to think about some practical ways to close it. And before we dive in, a couple housekeeping things. This will be recorded. This will be emailed out to you afterward. And we'll also have any resources that we talked about today included in the post-webinar follow-up. And before we dive in, I just quickly want to introduce SpendHound because we do have a lot of wonderful SpendHound customers on the call, but we also have folks who might just be getting to know SpendHound or getting to know SpendHound again. So for customers on the call, thank you so much. We're especially excited because AI spend visibility is now in the platform. So today we're going to actually look at the module and show you how to get started. And then for those who are new to SpendHound, welcome. SpendHound helps finance and procurement teams gain visibility into their SaaS and AI spend. Also helps folks understand what they're paying, are they paying a fair price through real benchmarking data. So we'll talk about that a bit. And then ultimately helps you negotiate better outcomes. Today, more than 1,300 organizations use SpendHound to make smarter software decisions. So with that, we can jump into our agenda today. All right, so here's how we're going to spend our time. First, I'm just going to walk through some of the data behind the AI spend problem that we just chatted about and what finance and procurement leaders are telling us right now. And then Shrish is going to explain why the dashboards provided by AI vendors don't fully solve this problem and give you the live look at AI spend visibility, including some new features inside SpendHound. And then we'll also cover how you can quickly get connected, how to access the module, and how AI visibility fits into kind of the broader SpendHound platform, from benchmarking and a new release deal grader to procurement and negotiation support. And then, of course, we will have plenty of time for questions at the end. So welcome folks who are joining us. Please feel free to leave questions in the chat throughout. All right, just to quickly orient us around what we're talking about today. The first thing I want to emphasize is that nobody has this completely figured out. We talk with customers who are really on, the high end of AI adoption, power users, early adopters, lots of token spend. And then we have plenty of customers who are, still exploring and still validating. And one thing is true across the board is that nobody has really figured out spend visibility. We recently surveyed 172 CFOs and finance leaders and procurement leaders, and even paired those responses with our spend data that we see through our platform. And three findings stood out. First, 46% of organizations went over budget on general purpose AI last year. Second, that 57% stat, people don't know what they're paying and if it's a fair price for AI. And third, 76% are already reconsidering at least one vendor relationship because of AI. And that could mean reconsidering a standalone AI vendor, questioning an AI add-on from an existing SaaS provider, or asking whether the organization is paying multiple vendors for overlapping capabilities, which is a very real possibility. So we will send everyone the complete AI spend report following this session. I would really encourage you to dig in. It is a free report and is full of really interesting pieces of information. But the broader takeaway is that AI has become a meaningful spend category before most organizations have really built the processes needed to manage it. One reason the category is so difficult um, on this next slide here, if we can advance, is that AI doesn't really behave like traditional SaaS. With a typical SaaS contract, as most of us know on this call, you might have a set number of seats and a relatively predictable annual cost, but AI spend is scaling with usage. So tokens, models, API calls, projects, different teams or users. And that means that last year's or even last quarter's budget or spend doesn't necessarily give you a reliable baseline for what finance teams need right now. And the category is still accelerating. We got a new Claude model, I think, last week. 81% of the leaders we surveyed expect their AI budgets to increase again in 2026. So this is more than any other software category. And at the same time, ownership remains really fragmented. 22% of teams told us that there is no single owner for their AI spend. It's moving faster than most annual budgeting and procurement processes were designed to handle. And even as it grows, around half of organizations still can't point to measurable ROI. So for most, it could just be because it's too soon, but it still makes visibility into usage and costs even more important. And that all these numbers, are helpful. Again, you can dig into them, but they're not just numbers in a report. They reflect what we are actually hearing from finance and procurement teams. So these are real quotes from real calls that we've had recently. I don't know what we're actually spending until the bill shows up. We added three AI tools and none of them replaced anything. And nobody owns this. It's spread across 5 different budgets. We would love to hear from you. Feel free to drop in the comments if you're experiencing any of these challenges. And if they do sound familiar, which I think they probably do, the next question we often hear is, well, we could build something internally, or don't OpenAI or Anthropic, these provider dashboards, don't they already kind of give us this information? Could I just use those? And so to answer that, and then to explain why we built AI spend visibility and to show it to you, I'm going to hand it over to Sreesh.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, so I think the OpenAI and Anthropic dashboards are great for sort of high-level visibility into the platform, but there's a couple of key differences in with like pain points that customers have that we've seen. The first thing is sort of admin-only access. So like to access those dashboards, you often need to be the admin of those tools. Usually that's engineering, sometimes finance also gets involved there. But there may be other people on your team that need access to this data. And so being able to unlock the access of knowing exactly who is spending on what, at what time that's happening, to properly triage spikes and things like that is important. The other thing is that, each of those dashboards are siloed to that specific provider, right? As companies use more and more tools, you need a single place to have all of your AI spend data. We have very few companies at SpendHound who are just indexed on one provider. Most of them use multiple providers because the quality of the models and the providers are changing rapidly. The other thing is sort of the lack of depth in these platforms. So via the APIs that we use to connect to Anthropic, OpenAI, and some of the other model providers, there's a lot of rich granular data that we can surface, but for some reason they don't put that in their dashboards. Basically, presumably it's because it's very detailed and it doesn't give you sort of like the quick snapshot that they think most customers are looking for. But at least from what we've seen from our customer conversations, maybe from your own sort of experience here, you do want to see down at the user and the model level what's being used. And then last thing is around benchmarking. So, SpendHound provides sort of contract level benchmarking across all of our software vendors, where we naturally want to take this as an extension for SpendHound AI module is to be able to give you pure benchmarking, right? So you can better rationalize like, hey, are other companies of our size or in our industry spending the same amount on AI as we are? Are they spending more? Are they spending less? What providers are they spending across? So as we sort of build up the customer cohort of people who are using this data, we also want to sort of share this data back to the customers to help make better business decisions on that side. Um, and so, yeah, now we'll go into the demo. But before we jump in, I just kind of wanted to take like a minute to talk about where we are thinking about taking AI spend within SpendHound. So, we want to ultimately give customers one place to track all of their AI spend. And so what that means is obviously like being able to pull in OpenAI and Anthropic, foundational model spend directly from the providers. But what it also means is being able to integrate with the next level of coding tools like Cursor, Replit, Lovable, and pulling in spend that's billed through there. It also means pulling in AI spend that comes through cloud, whether you're thinking about Bedrock for AWS, Vertex, GCP, Foundry, in Azure, being able to loop that in as well. And then lastly, all of your SaaS vendors, I'm sure many of you have noticed this, have started adding AI SKUs to their product offering, and these are sort of usage or token-based consumption models. And so, depending on where you are in your maturity level as far as AI adoption, you will also like sort of see this as a significant variable spend that needs to be tracked as well. So we want to be able to, parse the invoices, parse the data that we get from you guys, and deliver that sort of segmented view of that AI spend from the software vendors as well. So ultimately, being able to rely on all these different data sets to give you one dashboard that sort of shares your total AI spend across your company, also segmented by the teams, projects, users you have for those. And then be able to give you sort of real-time reporting on that against your budgets and forecasts. Yeah, so with that being said, I'm going to start sharing my screen now and go into the demo. So yeah, we have this like larger vision of what AI spend will look like in SpendHound. Where we're starting off with is direct integrations into OpenAI and Anthropic, and I'll give some more details on those after the demo. But essentially, once you connect those integrations, you'll have this page populated within your SpendHound environment. The idea here is that for any given time period, defaults to month to date, quarter to date, and year to date, but you can also select custom timeframes. You can see some high level stats on like total spend along with provider specific breakdowns of that spend. We'll also be able to show you projected monthly spend. We're also going to be adding projected annual spend in the next week or two here. And then month over month growth for the last 2 months of full AI spend. Down here, we have a spend chart. This is probably most similar to some of the views you see within the native providers, although this is going to be consolidated across all of your different providers with the ability to obviously filter between the providers and see that spend, or even filter at the top level for the page here. Scrolling on down is where we sort of get into a little bit more of the granular detail that you may not be able to easily access from the native dashboards. First thing is we'll be able to sort of show you for OpenAI and Anthropic your top 5 workspaces and projects by cost, with the ability to open up a modal and see more details around like the token volume, the spend, the active users here, all filterable and segmentable by the different time frames. And then similar view for like the API keys and the token volume associated with that. This is really useful if you're thinking about using workspaces, projects, or API keys to do sort of your segmentation between internal projects versus external projects or different teams. This is how a lot of every company does it differently, but these are different ways you can sort of think about how you sort of attribute costs on that way. Going on down, we have some of the more exciting sort of cards here. So first one here is spend by model. So the idea here is we'll give you a breakdown over time of like your spend broken down by each of the different models. So like this was really interesting to see when Fable first came out, for instance, we saw a huge spike in our customers, I think tw somewhere between 20 and 50% on daily token consumption when Fable came out. And then you saw the drop off completely after Fable was then restricted again. And then, after Fable was brought back, customers had already sort of anticipated this and had like a much more gradual increase in cost there. But these sort of graphs allow you to see that data within your own ecosystem on a daily basis. And that's actually one thing to note is that this data is refreshed daily. Um, and then, yeah, here on the right side, we have the top 5 users by token volume. Depending on the kind of company you are, you may use this in slightly different ways. We have some companies that are a little bit more conservative and wary of spiking AI costs, so they use this to sort of keep track of like who is using what to make sure that costs aren't spiking out of control here. Um, we have other companies that are very much in like the token maxing phase of life where they want to use this as a leaderboard in their company to basically highlight the users who are in fact adopting AI the most. But the idea here is being able to drill down into sort of like specific users and how they're using, how much they're consuming here. One related feature we'll be launching over the next couple weeks here is to be able to see more granular details by user, right? So being able to, like for Arlen here, see like, oh, consuming way more tokens than everyone else, but why is that, right? So being able to click in and drill down on specific model usage, maybe API keys that they have and trend lines associated with that. So you can have more tactical conversations with the teams and the users around their AI spend. And so this is the basics of what's being launched to what's in production today. If we just to highlight some new features we have coming up, we're working on some things around cost attribution, around being able to add sort of your own virtual tags to different segments of spend, so you can properly categorize spend by API key or by user or by team or by project. So that's something that will be useful in sort of understanding like what is like product related, like R&D costs versus like just general like internal usage of AI tools. We're also launching alerts and spike like anomaly detection. So being able to get alerted when there's some like unexpected spike in costs for a specific provider or model. And then obviously, I think the biggest thing that we are doing is sort of adding more integrations. So we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail, but like we're working on these sort of deeper ChatGPT, Cloud Enterprise integrations around Seat and like Codex visibility. We're working on Cursor and GitHub Copilot. AWS and GCP are shortly afterwards. So as you guys sort of get access to the platform and start using it, any feedback on the integrations or data sets that you want to see the most in here helps us prioritize those roadmaps. Um, One last thing I'll add that's launching next week is our first iteration into drill down pages. So if you have Anthropic API plans or Claude Enterprise, you'll be able to see another tab here around Claude Code Analytics. This is just a prototype. It'll look a slightly different in production. But the idea here is with Claude Code via the APIs, we're able to get much deeper data, not just on like cost and usage, but also on like productivity and efficiency. So we'll be able to give you sort of same sort of trend charts for Claude Code specifically, but then we can even back into sort of engineering activity proxies. So being able to show you like the number of total of lines of code generated by AI versus what is accepted and rejected, allowing you to sort of track an acceptance rate for the AI code. So if this is sort of static, or increasing, it's maybe your AI team, your engineering teams are using Claude Code more commonly, and they're accepting more of the AI generated code. But maybe if it's decreasing, that's a sign that the code that's being generated isn't actually as useful, and maybe there sort of needs to be a reevaluation of how we're using those tools. And then we'll also be able to show you the shipped work associated with this at a high level. So being able to track the commits and PRs associated with Claude Code. Also here, we'll be able to give you the same sort of user and model stats, but with users, we'll be able to do that drill down that I talked about earlier on the overview page for Claude Code specifically. So being able to go into any of your Claude Code users and see, trend lines for them on like the number of sessions they have, the cost that they're generating, and then sort of the commits and PRs that that cost is driving, right? And so when we think about, usage at the individual basis, we want to make sure that users are not just using Fable or Opus 5 for every single use case. They're actually using models effectively that deliver the right business outcome at the right price point. So we also have some cost efficiency metrics so you can track for the team overall, for example, like what is the cost per commit? And if that is staying static or trending down, that's a good sign. If it's going up, maybe that's a sign that we are just using the most performant models when we could be using some like lower cost model to do the same work. So yeah, this Cloud Code feature will drill down will be in beta next week for access to customers that have Anthropic and Cloud Enterprise. As we sort of get access to new APIs from these providers like OpenAI, we'll be able to do things like Codex drill downs as well. I will add what's really exciting and sort of a tailwind in this space is that all of these providers are adding to their API documentation basically every week. They're changing constantly and adding more endpoints and more visibility. So that just increases the value of the insights we'll be able to provide to you guys as you use the product. So that's the demo. So I'll pass it back to go back to the slides here.
And Shrish, while you go back to the slides, do you mind if I ask two questions that have come in?
Mhm.
All right. The first one is, do we have connection to Gemini or Copilot? Is that something that's on the roadmap?
Yeah. Gemini and Copilot are both on the roadmap right now. I would say it's likely that after we do Cursor, we'll do Copilot and then Gemini. But Gemini we've already started the Gemini work. We just need to do a little bit more testing, given that it's a more complex integration. But we're anticipating in the next month or two that we'll have both of those out.
Great. And then another question from, it sounds like a customer who's using the feature. Is it possible to view or compare token usage against the contracted token amount? If our desired result is forecast how soon we will run out of tokens based on spend. Kind of like how SpendHound provides us with this number of users, available number of users for other application types.
Yeah, so we're actually looking into this now because we had a good use case around this with Codex, for instance, around the credit usage. Um, the the APIs are evolving here, so you can get the token consumption or the credit consumption from there. The thing that we're sort of looking for is for us to also be able to programmatically pull those like limits or like allotted amounts directly from the provider as well. That's sort of why we've been holding off on those specific features. We're not sure when and if they will actually allow you to do that. So what we're thinking about now is allowing users to sort of manually either upload their contract so we can parse out the sort of like token sort of allocations or credit allocations they have, or set it manually themselves and then be able to track it against it like that. So that's one thing that we'll probably end up going with sort of a more manual based approach if we don't get that data from the APIs. And then the other thing is around like individual user spend limits. We are able to get this pretty commonly from the different APIs. We just haven't implemented it yet. It was just a prioritization piece on our roadmap. But the goal is like for eventually you to have the ability to basically say like, oh, this user has this much spend or this many tokens consumed so far. This is how much they have left before they hit their spend limit, right? And then, if we have customers who want this, we could even create like the right scope as well to basically allow you to adjust the limits for users within SpendHound.
Great. Thank you. And then last question before we continue. Does this support both Cloud Platform and Cloud Enterprise?
Yeah, so it's a little bit nuanced here. I'm not sure exactly why Anthropic decided to do this way. And OpenAI has done a similar thing, but if you're on like for Anthropic specifically, if you're on a Claude team plan and all of your spend is going through there, so you're thinking most like the seat-based sort of fees, you're not going to be able to get that visibility via the API. The visibility you can get through the APIs we have currently are spend that goes through the API platform in Claude or through Claude Enterprise. Sorry, the Anthropic API plan or the Claude Enterprise plan. It's a little bit complex and weird, and they're constantly updating their documentation here. But if there's any confusion about like essentially, oh, is our spend going through our, you know, Teams plan completely, or do we have some API plan and platform also? We're happy to like work with you on a call to sort of see exactly what plan you have to give you more visibility there. Okay, cool. So yeah, in terms of setups, one thing that's really exciting about this set of integrations is that they're super simple to set up. I'm sure like some of you guys have done like if you're a SpendHound customer, have done like NetSuite integrations, Sage Intacct integrations, which take like 15 to 20 minutes to actually get all the configurations and roles and scopes set up. These integrations are not like that at all. It's usually like 3 or 4 steps that takes a couple of minutes. We actually have put the integration instructions in the integration pages themselves on the platform so customers can self-serve and self-sign up without us getting involved. I think about 70 or 80% of our customers do this right now. And it takes a few hours to see the data in the platform with the daily refresh. In terms of like eligible customers now, if you have OpenAI at the enterprise level, you can connect this if you have admin access. This is spend that's going through your like API plan with OpenAI. Although last week they did release some like not like publicly available but not listed documentation around sort of like deeper cost analytics across Codex and ChatGPT Enterprise. So we'll be adding that as well. And then for Anthropic, like I sort of mentioned, if you have an API plan with admin access or you have Claude Enterprise, you'll also be able to integrate those buckets of spend. Um, with SpendHound right now, like I mentioned, we're only doing read-only access to these integrations. If we get a lot of interest in being able to do some write-backs, maybe on like updating users or deprecating users or yeah, adding or changing spend limits, we may add that, but that's not currently something that we're planning on doing. And then in terms of like the main parts of our roadmap, I kind of mentioned some of this already, but the biggest thing is just adding more integrations. We want to give you as much visibility into your AI spend as possible. So the biggest things we're working on are, you know, improving the data that we get from like the enterprise level Anthropic and OpenAI integrations, adding Cursor, GitHub Copilot, AWS, Gemini, and then as more providers roll out these admin endpoints that we can use to access this billing and usage data, we'll continue to support them.
Thanks, Trish. All right, so just to recap that, for existing SpendHound customers, AI spend visibility is already live in the platform. If you're a company admin, you should see it. You can visit the module and follow the integration instructions directly. If you don't have admin access within SpendHound, you can reach out to your CS manager or your organization's SpendHound administrator to get started. And then for anyone who isn't yet a customer on the call, you can book time with our team. We can run you through a demo and get you signed up. SpendHound is free for customers with fewer than 1,000 employees and a flat 10,000 fee for our mid-market customers. So really, you know, a very cool tool on the market that is free for a lot of folks. We'll drop a demo link in the chat here. And then this answers one of the questions that just came in. We are, like Shrish said, opening early access to customers using Cursor and GitHub Copilot. So if either of those is important to you or an important part of your AI stack, definitely let us know, respond to the follow-up email, or drop a note in the chat, and we'll make sure to reach out to you so that you can get included in that beta. And then what you saw kind of solves an important part of the problem, understanding what you're actually spending on AI and where that usage is coming from. But we know that visibility alone doesn't tell you whether or not you're getting a good deal. And so that's something that SpendHound, you know, started on and continues to really support our customers with. AI spend visibility shows you what you're spending by provider, by model, by project, by user. In-platform benchmarking, which we launched last month, shows you how your SaaS and AI pricing compares with real contracts from more than 1,300 companies. And that's important because our benchmarks aren't based on broad surveys or self-reported estimates. They're built from actual contract data, including SKU level pricing where available. And then Deal Grader, which we'll talk about for just a second because we released it earlier this month, brings that benchmarking signal directly into the application catalog. So you can see really quickly where you have strong pricing and where you might need to take a closer look. So that's on this next slide here. This is just last week. It's really a visibility layer, an extension of in-platform benchmarking. And rather than having to open every vendor individually, or wait until a renewal is ready and then kind of go hunt down that information, you can now see a grade right in your catalog and in your admin dashboard. That gives you kind of a fast point in time view across your portfolio. So you could see that an upcoming renewal is already priced competitively and doesn't require much attention. Or you could spot a poor grade on a major vendor and decide that's where your team should focus its time. So this really helps our finance and procurement teams move from simply having the benchmark data to using it to really prioritize action. And this is true for AI tools as well. All right, lastly, and keep the questions coming. We do have some time. We tend to wrap these up within 30 minutes, so happy to give you the time back, but also feel free to ask more questions in the chat. But once you identify that area of concern, the next question is, what do you do with the information? Just a reminder for our customers on the call, every SpendHound customer has unlimited access to our procurement expert team, so they can help you understand the benchmark, identify your leverage, review contracts, and support building negotiation plans. Our goal is never just to hand you a data point. It's really to help your team turn that data into a stronger decision and a stronger vendor conversation. And then for organizations that do want more hands-on support, we offer managed negotiation, which is a newer service. And in this model, SpendHound can take that vendor-facing role. We'll do deeper research, vendor-specific research, and bring on real expert negotiators to help you really negotiate a lower rate. It's a success fee-based model. So that's always an option if you're interested. So that's the full workflow. It's you see the spend, you understand how your deal compares, you can prioritize where to focus, and then take action. All right, that is everything we wanted to walk through today. We'd love to hear what questions you have. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A or the chat. I saw one come in just now. Does that cost session function need a separate implementation? Um, I'm not sure if that refers to AI spend or deal grader. But if it's deal grader, the answer is no. And the implementation AI spend. Okay. Shree,
Yeah,
do you want
so
to
I
cover
think
that?
you're referring to the Claude Code deeper drill down page. No, that won't need a separate implementation. That'll basically just be available through the existing Anthropic and Cloud Enterprise integrations.
Great. Shreesh, a question came through. Can my engineering team use this?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially for I think we've seen a couple of things on the overview page that we just showed. We've seen probably like a 60-40 mix of interest between finance and engineering on having this level of visibility. So we definitely have a lot of engineering and IT teams that have access to the AI spend module for their customers or for the companies and are actively using it. For the Claude Code specific drill down pages in sort of the initial discovery and beta that we've done there, it does tend to be more interesting to the engineering teams. The common thing I've heard from finance teams is like, I probably won't get too far into this, but my engineers would love this, right? So they are excited about doing that because they want their engineers to be able to, identify the power users on their team and sort of like have them share the learnings that seeing across the team, right? Or identify if there's like junior engineers who are using 10x the tokens of senior engineers, understanding like, hey, are you using it more effectively, like as effectively as you can? So I think that those sort of drill downs into sort of the coding specific tools will be mo like have slightly more value to engineering teams. Yeah. And
Great.
then I did see another question here about plans to include GitHub Actions and Cloudflare. Um, Not currently because only because we haven't gotten that request. So Alfonso, I'll take this back and have our team look at it and see how feasible it is, like if the appropriate endpoints exist. But yeah, like I mentioned, our goal is to do as many integrations as possible to give customers the complete visibility they want. So anything is on the table in that case.
With the profiles and rules for user access into our SpendHound accounts, is it possible to limit access for individuals to AI info only?
Yeah, great question. I forgot to mention this in sort of the roadmap. So currently it's available to company admins within the SpendHound account only. Obviously, you don't want to give everyone company admin access in your SpendHound account. So we are in the process of building out a specific role. I think it's just called like AI spend user within SpendHound. So that will come pre-filtered such that they will only have access to that module. I think the most common use cases I've seen for that is one, if there are engineers you want to get access to the module, but you don't want them to see anything else related to the software spend, that's one use case. The other use case is like maybe you have senior leaders or executives on your team who are really like interested in seeing this on a day-to-day basis, and they're constantly pinging you about this stuff. You can just give them access via that AI spend role, and they'll be able to see that module.
Great. Great questions. I'm just scanning. I don't see any more in the chat. Any other questions, folks? All right. Well, before we wrap, there are three easy next steps. First, keep an eye out for the full AI spend report in your email. It includes much more detail on budgets, ownership, vendor consolidation, benchmarking, and how companies like yours are thinking about AI ROI. And then second, if you'd like to see AI spend visibility using your own data, and if you are not already a SpendHound customer, definitely book time either in the chat. I'll just drop the link again, or follow up in the follow-up email. And then lastly, if you're already a SpendHound customer, hope you're in there, hope you're making the connection, and you can always reach out if you have any questions. But we're really excited about this. We know our customers are already really enjoying it, and there's so much more to come, like Sri showed us today. So thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thanks, everyone.